Good Sunday morning. I'm News Center Maine's Don Kerrigan with this week's edition of Political Brew, joined by analysts Republican Phil Harriman, Democrat Ken Altshuler. We had you guys here just a couple weeks ago. Nice to have you back.
Easter Bunny.
There you go.
Happy Easter.
There you didn't bring me any chocolate.
Passover, Ken.
So, speaking of things happening in Maine this week, not Easter, but a remarkable situation with Attorney General Aaron Frey, who had to put out a statement saying that he was involved in a romantic relationship with a member of his staff. It's now, the Republicans are calling for an investigation. Democrats in the legislature chooses the Attorney General, are going to investigate. Ken, I'm going to go to you first as the lawyer in all this. It seems like the Attorney General should have known better.
Oh, of course. Not illegal, blatantly unethical. He's the Attorney General. This is a legal issue and a moral and ethical one. He knows better. There's no way he can say he didn't know better. He should be disciplined. I'm not sure if he shouldn't resign, frankly.
Is that serious?
Yeah. For the highest law official in the state of Maine to do something that is blatantly sexual harassment. It truly is. You can't have, you can't be the supervisor of somebody you're involved with without disclosing it. I'm not sure you should even ever have that relationship, frankly. But if you're going to disclose it, make everyone know about it, make sure it's consensual. You know, I say this all the time. You know, Democrats can't point to ethical lapses of Republicans if they're not willing to do something about their own people doing it. And this is blatant. He should be at least sanctioned. I don't expect anything else to happen with it, but he should be sanctioned by a Democratic legislature.
You know, I think you raised a very good observation, Don, and that is in the state of Maine, the constitutional officers, the state attorney general is one, is appointed by the legislature. They're not out there campaigning for election, and we'd be talking about a recall and all that. Right. So it's incumbent upon the leadership of the legislature, and credit to Troy Jackson and Speaker Talbot for saying they're going to use their power to investigate that.
So what do you think should happen? I mean, this is not a violation of law. It may be a foolish mistake to not disclose it, but
yeah, I think the Speaker and the President should do their job and investigate it and come up with a decision and report it.
Yeah. Should he be forced to resign?
I would be.
Over this?
I wish we had a vote of confidence like you have in Great Britain and say, you know, we need to see, would we elect this person now based upon this? He'd probably get reelected, reelected by the legislature. But it's got to be a strong message that this behavior can't be tolerated by anyone.
Yeah. And of course, Republicans are using this to renew their call for having public election of the Attorney General for the various reasons, political reasons they want that.
Right. Smart.
Right. But that doesn't appear likely to happen.
No.
That's not going to change. No. All right. First Lady Jill Biden was in Maine this week, visited Southern Maine Community College to see tech training and skills training. A good thing for Maine, we would think. Phil?
Oh, yeah. I think anytime the chief executive or the first man or lady visit the state of Maine, it brings in the national press. It highlights the good work that's being done at the community college level. So yeah, there's nothing but an upside to her appearance.
And not a, other than the fact that she's the wife of the president, not a hugely political event.
No, but she brought with her the Secretary of Education, the national press. It's all good. Yeah.
Can you agree?
And highlighting community college, which we all say we really need to emphasize, highlight. It's really an important component of the educational system, particularly with the cost of higher education. So he's right. Anytime you have something like that, you're right. Rarely, once in a while. And it's Easter, I'm going to be kind to you. So yeah, so it's great from a PR point of view. It's terrific, always.
Back to the Republicans in the legislature, they're pushing for passage of some bills that would restore exemptions to the vaccine requirements. Some bills specific to COVID, some to all mandated vaccines. Those exemptions were eliminated a few years ago in a referendum. Phil, what's driving this? Is it all because of the continued hangover, if you will, from the COVID vaccine dispute?
Well, I think part of it is there's also facts and statistics that we now know that weren't prevalent then that say, you know, the vaccine may not have been as effective as someone who had a natural immunity, and I think the Republicans are right, excuse me, for going back and giving the option for choice. And, you know, Democrats are all about choice. This is one that families and individuals should be given.
Yeah. Ken, how do you see it?
I have no problem with mandatory vaccinations to protect our school children. And the problem with the vaccine being sold was it was sold as to stop you from getting COVID, which it didn't. It minimized the effects of COVID. And if they had sold it right and explained it right, which the government was very bad at doing, it probably would have been an issue. And I don't mind a religious exemption. I think there is that issue about freedom of religion and whether if you have a true religious opposition to it. Philosophical, I'm not sold on. But, you know, when you do mandatory vaccinations, like of nurses and like school children, you know, I kind of think that the good of the society outweighs the good of the individual. And that's kind of the balance you have to do.
But this does also help to fill a Republican talking point about freedom and
well,
all
yeah,
that,
but
right?
this is not about a Democrat or Republican. It's about a scientific. And you know, talk about, Ken, for the children, the efficacy of the vaccine on children has been called into question. We had people during the height of the virus who were in EMTs and hospitals that we were celebrating as heroes, and then the next day we're firing them because they wouldn't get a vaccination. Well, this is a chance to kind of look through the lens of history, look at the facts, and make a decision.
Well, COVID was unique. It was fast. I mean,
yeah,
I remember
no
from February to March, it was a completely different scenario. And so, yeah, maybe we jumped the gun on some issues, but, you know, err on the side of caution sometimes.
Okay.
You know?
And starting Monday, we have the long-awaited trial, jury trial, involving the CMP corridor. While this won't be the final word, I don't know if there's ever going to be a final word. Why? Because the verdict will get appealed. This is closing in on final decision, Ken.
Kind of. It's complicated once again.
Spoken like a lawyer.
Because the jury's going to decide whether the work CMP did was advanced enough to kind of give them a waiver, make them immune from having to stop it. Then the issue comes, did they accelerate the work so they could get to that point so that they wouldn't have to stop it? So you make that decision. That doesn't necessarily change the fact that a regulatory agency approved it. And that's an underlying issue. If you approve it, can you now say we've changed our mind, or the people have said to change your mind? So lots of layers here. No, this case is going to go on 4 years. I'll be long gone before this is resolved.
I hope not. You know, this is a company, forget what you think about who's doing this. They went through all the regulatory steps. They got the Public Utilities Commission, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Land Use Regulatory Commission, Environmental Protection, Energy Department in Washington. They got all these approvals, got underway. The controversy arose out of 1 acre of this project that was on public lands.
That was only half the controversy.
Right, but it went to court, and the court said, no, that was a legitimate lease. And then they took this step of going to referendum, and now we're down to, did they substantially begin the work on the project? That's what it's boiling down to.
Part of it. Yeah. When that's resolved, there'll be other issues too.
And there will be an appeal by whichever side is not successful.
And we're going to have a public run CMP anyway, right?
Big things happening in the state of Tennessee after the tragic shooting there last week. Now we have the Republican-controlled House of Representatives in the state legislature voting to expel 2 Democrats for their role in helping to lead a demonstration in the House chamber to try to force gun control. Phil, I'll start with you. What do you think of this?
Well, it's easy, and I'm sure most of the headlines are talking about how 2 members of color were expelled over gun control, and all of that was the topic. But the reason they were expelled, 2 were expelled, 1 almost was expelled by 1 vote, is because they violated the rules of the legislative chamber. Mm-hmm. If someone in the Maine Senate did what was done in Tennessee, Troy Jackson, as president of the Senate, I'm sure would be taking firm action to reprimand these members, and in this case, they were expelled. Mm-hmm. There's going to be an immediate special election, and they can get perhaps reelected.
Mm-hmm. And Ken, I know you have a somewhat different view.
The one person who did not get expelled was a white woman.
Why does that? Why is the
Because
color
white,
matter?
they all did the same
They
thing.
didn't.
They
The
all
the
participated.
person who was white was not holding a bullhorn.
But she was locked and armed with them. She was up there with them.
Stayed in by one vote. It wasn't like you're portraying it.
But she stayed in by one vote. And the only difference between those two men and her was color and gender. Look, Troy Jackson may have taken action. He would not move to expel somebody. This was an extreme reaction from a Republican-controlled legislature. The gentleman from—
question. So you think it's because of race, not because of the gun issue?
I think the expulsion's about guns, but the fact that only 2 were expelled and not the woman was completely racially motivated. No doubt about it.
I disagree. I think this was a decision based on the behavior of elected officials who in that chamber know the rules, regardless of their gender.
But she violated them too.
She didn't have the bullhorn.
She screamed, she yelled, she clapped, she locked arms with them.
Well, we're going to a special election. I won't be surprised if
They'll be back. They'll be back.
Right.
They'll be appointed.
And one of them is
election.
a Bowdoin grad.
That's
Yes,
right.
exactly.
So there we go. So more interest from us. And speaking of commotion, we had the astonishing situation earlier in the week. Former President of the United States appearing in court to face felony charges. I'm sure you watched some of this or watched the aftermath.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you agree, as we've heard some analysts say, that this will never reach trial?
I'm not a lawyer. I'll defer to my counsel here to my right.
What did you say? You'll defer to me? Nice.
It sure appears on both sides of the aisle, the so-called experts are saying this case should not have gone to the point where it is, and this is going to embolden Trump to use his "I'm being persecuted by the prejudicial bipartisan legal system."
Mm-hmm. Ken.
So you may remember when we were here beforehand, I said, I hope this isn't the first legal action against Donald Trump because it was going to be the weakest. Unfortunately, much weaker than even I anticipated. And it's a little complicated because it's a misdemeanor charge to falsify documents. That's illegal, and that's completely legitimate, and he did it, and he's guilty of doing that. You have to add the layer of committing another crime by doing that. And the argument is, well, he did that to save his campaign. The problem is all he has to do is, I did that to save my wife from finding out. And that's beyond a reasonable doubt is not even close to that explanation. So you can't get a felony conviction. And he was reaching to do it. He could have brought misdemeanor charges. He could have brought other charges. It was ill-advised. He shouldn't have done it. I don't think it's going to matter because it's not going to be until after 2024 anyway, and there's going to be other charges, I think, brought against him in Georgia that will outweigh these. But it was foolish. I wouldn't have done it.
So this could well end up in court in the middle of the primary next year.
Yes, it could.
Right?
Yeah, wouldn't that be fun?
What a spectacle.
Well, that just fuels the speculation. This is, a partisan attorney general who's supposed to be a DA, who's supposed to be administering the law, and justice is blind. That will influence an election.
Well, he also said on his campaign he was going to continue.
And briefly, for both of you, briefly, how much does this help or hurt Donald Trump? Phil?
I think it helps him in the Republican primaries. I don't think it helps him in the general.
I think his base is his base. They would be supporting anyway. I think most people, if stuff gets piled on, if there's other charges coming, I think it eventually hurts him. It's a pile-on situation.
Okay. And speaking of the Republican primary, there's increasing talk about the possibility of New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu joining the race for the Republican presidential nomination. Ken, would he have any chance in a Republican primary?
No, because he's pro-choice. There's no Republican who's going to get the nomination if you're pro-choice. No Democrat who's going to get the nomination if you're pro-life. It's not going to happen in the primary. He'd be a great candidate for president for the Republican Party, but he can't go through the primaries because those are the extremes are the ones who nominate the candidates. Not a bad candidate, very personable, very accessible, be a good candidate to have Republicans to have, much like Joe Biden was kind of a moderate Democrat, a good What, you're laughing at that?
You just got teed up right there.
Do you remember the Vermont senator who ran against him? Yeah. A little more liberal.
Sununu for now. Okay. Phil, what do you think?
I think he is on paper a great candidate. He has the advantage of being in the state that has the first primary. He's got to win that by a big margin if he's going to catch catch fire.
Yeah. But do you think he'd be a definite underdog in the primary?
Oh, for sure. But if he's going to get the attention and the focus and the momentum, he's got to win New Hampshire big, and he's got to have a compelling message beyond the fact that he's pro-choice.
Okay. All right. Winners and losers. What do we have? Ken, you first.
Well, my winner of the week is the woman in Wisconsin Supreme Court justice who won the Supreme Court nomination and should show the Republicans, if they haven't gotten it yet, that abortion is the issue. If you're in a non-supportive abortion state, not New York, not a state that you can really get it, but a red state or Wisconsin, a borderline state, if you don't focus on the abortion issue, you're going to lose. She's the winner by double digits, by the way, in a borderline toss-up state. Loser, Aaron Fry. How the top legal authority figure in the state of Maine can do something so blatantly stupid is beyond recognition. And he's the loser of the week.
There we go.
In honor of Easter, there are no losers this week. And the winner this week is Julie Fitzgerald. She's a 24-year veteran of the Portland Police Department. She's been welcomed by the force now as a transgender. Good for her, good for the Portland Police Department.
All right. Thank you both very much. Happy Easter to you and to all of you at home. News Center Maine continues right after this.